So as you are probably aware, if we go by their schedule history, Sony should unveil the new Xperia Mark 6 range very shortly. And what that means is, since we're getting closer to this announcement, various sources have already started leaking what this year's iteration will bring to the table. But of course, as always with leaks, take this with a very big pinch of salt. So before I go over my wish list of what would make, to me at least, a serious photographer's phone in 2024, let's talk about these rumours. So following on from last year's launch of the groundbreaking X-Multi sensor, which was found on the main camera module of the 1 Mark V and the 5 Mark V, Sony is said to be expanding this type of sensor to all 3 camera modules of the 1 Mark VI. If you're not too familiar with what the X-Multi technology, it's essentially a stack sensor which allegedly allows for more light gathering, less noise and a wider dynamic range. Now, why do I say allegedly? Well, as we have now found out, the improvement brought by the stack sensor seems to only kick in when taking photos in JPEG. So that is the reason why a lot of people were left rather underwhelmed looking at how little the difference were between the Mark IV and the Mark V when shooting in RAW specifically, other than a few quality of life upgrades. So it remains to be seen whether Sony will make those improvements available at sensor level and when shooting in RAW. So according to this leak, the ultra-wide camera will jump from the current 12 megapixel to the 48 megapixel X-Multi sensor, and it would remain a 16mm focal length, but it would seem that the aperture will jump from the 2.2 to a lower 2.7, which might help in keeping the whole frame nice and sharp, but at the expense of a worse light gathering since the pixel size is also said to remain the same at 0.6 micron. Time will tell whether the sensor stacking technique will help in that regard. Moving on to the telephoto lens, interestingly, Sony looks to have changed the zoom range slightly from 80 to 125mm to 70 to 135mm. So essentially giving us a 2.9 to 5.6x optical zoom, but this time around with the ability to crop on that 48 megapixel sensor, which may also have the option of a 270mm focal length, or simply put, an 11x zoom. So that would definitely be a game changer. In terms of sensor, again, the 48 megapixel X-Multi joins the party and replaces the old 12 megapixel. As it is rumored to be the case with the ultra wide sensor, the aperture is also getting smaller at 2.7 versus last year's 2.3. Again, my concerns here are the same in terms of light gathering, unless the X-Multi sensor really boosts that dynamic range, especially as pixel size also remains the same at 0.6 microns. And finally, the main wide camera sensor is rumored to remain pretty much the same as last year, but will now include the 48mm focal length via sensor crop that Sony apparently couldn't bring over to the 1 Mark V from the 5 Mark V last year. Cheeky. The sensor and pixel sizes, again, are also meant to be identical to last year's model. So if we go by this leak, it would seem Sony is trying to increase and diversify the possibilities by giving many more focal lengths to choose from. And that actually was one of my top requests in this wish list, and they seem to have covered just that. On the other hand though, will the sensor size increase of both the ultra wide and the telephoto be enough to compensate for the jump from 12 megapixel to 48 megapixel? It would seem it isn't if we go by this leak, which clearly shows that some compromises had to be made, like lowering the aperture to 2.7 on both sensors, which, unless they really make full use of that X-Multi capabilities in both JPEG and RAW modes, will give worse results in low light. Again, we can only wait for Sony to unveil the new range in the coming days to see if those worries are warranted or not. Now, for what I'm really hoping for, and this is my plea to Sony, to address some issues and improve on the current range. It might be a bit too late for the Mark 6 range, but please, Sony, if you were to watch these videos, these are the things that to me will make the Xperia phones the best on the market when it comes to photography. So at number 1, split the photo apps completely. I have mentioned this a few times now. Seeing the feedback from the community in general, I really think making a box standard regular camera app would help the Xperia getting on the map, because too often I hear people saying how confusing it all is, and to be completely honest, it is. Let's say you've just made a switch from, I don't know, from an iPhone and you're used to, you know, that box standard camera app. Coming to the Photo Pro app is an absolute nightmare. Options and menus everywhere, mixed with the Pro menus all over the place. If you just want a quick photo at a snap of the finger, you need two things, a clean UI and a very efficient processing. And right now, the Xperia fails are both of those. Sony really needs to wipe the slate clean and design a clutter-free UI accessible and familiar to everyone. And like MKBHD's blind test videos proved, Sony really needs to up their game when it comes to how JPEG processing is done. The people want bright, crisp and saturated photos. Give it to them. For this basic photo app, let go of that natural and neutral colors philosophy and embrace computational photography. Go all out with HDR and night mode. Again, that's what the majority of people want. Then, on the other hand, keep the Photo Pro app just that, Pro, and actually add more features. Now that you have two separate photo apps to play with, you can really go all out and add more advanced features for the photo enthusiast and really corner that niche market. But more of that in a moment. Number two, it's time to switch to 16 megapixel photos. We've been stuck now with 12 megapixel photos for years with most phones, with the exception of phones in the Samsung range, for example, that will allow you a full sensor photo output, but the results are less than stellar and more importantly, no raw output available. So what's with the 12 megapixel output then, when most phones nowadays got like 24 megapixel, 48 megapixel and higher sensors? Well, to keep things simple, let's just say that there's a process called pixel binning, which combines pixels together to improve the dynamic range and the light gathering, and it downsamples the whole result to a 12 megapixel photo. Now, if Sony made the jump to a larger 64 megapixel sensor, it would allow for a 16 megapixel output, which, let's face it, wouldn't be a luxury in 2024. It would increase the amount of detail as well as allow for more room in post when editing photos. So at number three, the processing. Okay, so we just talked about how people crave that heavily processed look, but when shooting in RAW, that's the exact opposite we want. And yet, as many people, including myself, have noticed, we get unnecessary processing in a RAW output, like vignetting baked in a RAW file. But why? Why? Now, some of you may or may not be aware, but importing the DNG file into Lightroom on PC gives you a different processing of the baked-in DNG profile that if you were editing that same photo on your phone, so just be aware of that. Sony also really needs to work on how the ISP works in tandem with the RAW sensor data, since currently we get an output that is quite a bit noisier than I'd like to see. Again, seeing the competition they're using the same IMX sensors and they're not having this issue looks to me to be an underlying Sony problem here. So at number four, the UI and the software. So hypothetically, if Sony did split the photo apps like I suggested, we would end up with a lot more room to play with within the Photo Pro app. So here's a list of things that I would really love to see added in terms of Pro features. Custom modes. So currently the custom modes are selected via the wheel by going to the memory recall mode, then having to pick the mode, then click apply. So why not add those buttons on the main UI screen? That would save so much time and make things so much easier. Then the wheel menu, since we're talking about selecting modes, surely there's a more intuitive and more user-friendly way to do it than having to swipe a wheel to get to the selected mode. You'd rotate a dial on, on an alpha camera, but on the phone it really doesn't make sense. Maybe add, I don't know, the MS auto buttons on the left-hand side. Burst mode. Now, this is a big one. Why would you restrict a phone to burst mode in JPEG? Surely the LPDDR5 RAM should have plenty of bandwidth to allow for a buffer, or at least, I don't know, 10 frames per second? Or, I don't know, maybe is it an ISP bottleneck? I don't know. But I would definitely trade the 30 frame per second JPEG burst mode for 10 frame per second RAW burst mode any day. Bracketing, good old bracketing. This one actually really baffles me. How do we not have bracketing mode is beyond me. That is a pretty basic function that most DSLR mirrorless cameras offer nowadays, and not one that I would think would be very hard to implement on the Xperia range. Come on, Sony. Highlights and shadow clipping zebras. Again, another very simple addition that would make our lives much easier. Any camera nowadays has this function. Bulb mode. Currently, the longest exposure you can set is 30 seconds, which is a shame, as I know a lot of people really need to be able to go higher than that if they want to do astrophotography, for example. Again, it's a very simple one to implement, and yet it's nowhere to be seen. So at number 5, the device itself. So this wish list is mostly focused on the photography aspect of things, since, you know, this is a mobile phone photography channel after all. But there are a couple of things that I would love to see Sony improve on in the next few years. Under-screen fingerprint reader. It would seem that fingerprint scanners built in the power button don't age very well, and there are literally hundreds if not thousands of stories online of people rocking older Xperia phones having issues with the scanner, and it's easy to see why. Movable parts are always kind of more prone to failure after a certain length of time, and moving the fingerprint reader under the screen would prevent that issue completely from happening. Screen brightness. Now, whilst the Xperia 1 Mark V is far from being the dimmest phone out there, in 2024 it pales in comparison with the latest iPhones and Samsung phones, which rock more than twice the peak brightness of current Xperias. A variable refresh rate screen, so 120Hz is great, and I'm one of those people who definitely couldn't go back to 60Hz, but for the sake of battery preservation, it's about time that Sony moved up with the time and started using LTPO screens in their devices, which, you know, would be less taxing on the battery when using always on display, for example, which I'm a big fan of. A first-party weather app. Right, so this one has really bugged me from the day that I got my Xperia. So Sony can throw millions of dollars at making a Video Pro app, a Photo Pro app, but they can't come up with their own weather app? Really, Sony? I mean, it's not a deal breaker as you can just download any app, but it's not the point. Surely one shouldn't have to rely on a third-party app when even new companies like Nothing can launch their new range of Nothing phones with a first-party app. So what do you guys think? What are your thoughts and opinions? Please do let me know in the comments what you would like to see added or changed in the upcoming Xperia range. I'd be very interested to see what you guys think. So again, this video is not a long list of let's moan at Sony, but see more as a constructive feedback, and I really hope someone at Sony watches this, and if you actually work for the Xperia division, I would love if you got in touch to have a proper chat. Look, at the end of the day, I love the Xperia 1 Mark V, but like with every other device out there, it's not perfect. But I don't judge a company on the mistakes they make, but rather on their ability to listen to the feedback and act on it. Anyway guys, I think that's about all I had to say on the subject of the new Xperia range coming soon, and I'll be very excited to see how it all stacks up against the huge amount of devices coming this year. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, smash the like button and hit the notification bell. So thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!